I loved listening to one of your recent podcasts too. You said, moving back in with your mom, it's like while it was the last place that you wanted to be, God definitely brought you back to that space,
Mhm.
to meet you there, and how she would play Joel Osteen on the TV, and
Mhm.
you'd hear it, and it would always be exactly what you needed to hear to make it through your day.
Yep.
And so I just think that's so cool. Like, he was pursuing you really hard in that season. Like, he literally brought you home to him, and not just in the spirit world. Like, he actually brought you home too to do that.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I needed to come home because I never would have left that relationship, and I can't imagine what would have happened had I stayed. I needed to have all of those resources taken away from me for me to learn who I actually was in the Lord and what was actually important.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. I had
Mhm.
a really toxic relationship in Arizona too, and mine was, like, more in your face, like, burning bush kinda moment that brought me to the Lord, because I saw a demon in him, and that's when I realized, I'm like, "Okay, so all of this is real. If demons are real, Jesus must be real." Because at that time, I was really new agey. I thought that the universe was God, and I didn't think that Satan was a person or Jesus was a person. So that instance made me realize, it's all real. But I totally know what you mean. Like, I wouldn't have let that relationship go had Jesus not given me the strength to do so. And had he not begun teaching me, like, what I actually deserve to have in a man. Because then
Mhm.
that led to me being saved. And then I started learning, okay, so Jesus, learning who he was as a man. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, he would never want that kind of relationship for me. He would love me. He would send somebody who would love me so much better. And I just knew that that wasn't it, because, like, relationships that are like toxic relationships, they're just very scarring. And the man that you're supposed to be with, the man that God would send you, it's not going to be scars.
Yeah, it's so amazing, and it's amazing to me that you visually saw, like, demons, right?
Yeah.
That's
Numerous times, but that last time I was completely sober because, like I told you, I got into all the psychedelic kind of stuff while I was in Arizona, but this time when I saw this demon, I was completely sober, and that's how I knew. I was like, "Okay, this is all real."
right? Like that, like I don't know if it's one you listen to, but the Severe Mercy episode that I just had recently that I was talking about how God often it was my pastor talked about this in one of his sermons recently, how God will deal us a severe mercy to bring us back to him, and something like that where it's like right in your face, or like it's something that hurts so badly you
Yeah.
have like you can't go anywhere else, and it's awful, but it's a mercy
Yeah.
regardless because it brings you back to God.
Yeah, and it's so cool too how he comes to each person in the way that he knows that we would receive him. So I had my mom on one of my most recent episodes, and she's super rebellious, and struggles with like a whole lifetime of addiction. So she's seen really crazy spiritual things too. And she told me, she was like, she's like, I don't have to have faith. She's like, I don't think I would have been strong enough to have faith. She was like, but God let me see what he let me see because he knew that. He knew that
Mhm.
that was the only way to get me to believe. And I think it's the same thing with me, is like, I did not believe in Jesus at all, so he knew that he had to show me what he showed me, but every person's different, and that's what I love about, the intimate relationship that we each have with him, because he's going to present himself and pursue in different ways depending on that person.
Right. People, I'm sure you've experienced it, but I talk about all the time. People, especially on TikTok, are just so awful sometimes.
I hear you
It's,
talk about that. I always wonder, like, who you're seeing because
do you
I
not get that?
well, like, do you mean, like, the haters in the comments that are, like, with all their legalistic views and stuff like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the where I was going with this is that like I was saved by a new agey book.
Mhm.
But how many people would say that that's impossible because it's not in the Bible? Like
Yeah.
the Lord condemns, obviously it goes against the Lord. So that couldn't have happened because he would never send you anything that wasn't of him. And it's just like, it, it's people that like to put God in a box for
Yes,
me. That
yes.
drives me nuts. And I understand, like, they want, everything in the Bible is truth. And that's so, I mean, obviously, but also God works in other ways that we don't understand. So basically that's what I'm talking about. Yes, like the political legalistic stuff that just I'm like, wow.
Well, that's the same exact thing that the Pharisees did.
Right.
They tried to put God in a box too, and Jesus was
Yeah.
there the whole time like, like, I'm here.
Right.
Yeah, and so I love that you brought up the book and how people would say, like, there's no way that you could be saved through a new agey book because there was a really new agey book that was right there hand in hand with my salvation too, and it's called Mary Magdalene Revealed, um, by, like, Megan Watterson, or I think it's Megan Watterson, and, she went to Harvard, she studied religion, I think she would even, like, I think she might even call herself a Christian, but she teaches, like, the Gnostic Gospels, which we know are
Mhm.
not, it's not biblically accurate, right? Like, this
Right.
is people in the New Age community love this book, but in this book, it's like a story about, Mary Magdalene being in love with Jesus. And
Oh,
so right, and so that's, like, not in the Bible, right? That goes
right.
against, that's not, you can't, like, fact check that with the Bible, but in reading that, because it was before I was saved and I was in this toxic relationship still, I began to be curious about Jesus because
Mhm.
I was seeing how much, based on what this book was saying, how much Mary loved him and how good of a person he was and all the great things that he did, that I was like, I should start reading the Bible too to get more of, like, the details of what he did. So it was a new agey book as well that pushed me to reading the Bible in conjunction with the fact that, so my toxic relationship was he was married and, definitely totally against the Bible. At that time, I didn't believe in the Bible. I believed all this guy's lies that they were separated and,
Oh
he
yeah.
left that marriage and we were gonna be together and we were looking at houses, and but anyway, so he was a Christian, so I did start to wanna consider the Bible, and it's like a double whammy of what you said, like, people say God isn't gonna speak in that way because that goes against the Bible, but he spoke to me through a married man, which is like adultery. It is adultery,
Mhm.
and through a new agey book. So I think God can do anything.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when it comes to salvation, there are so many people again with like the legalism and needing to be so perfect about the Bible and
Mm,
what it says, and making in this focus on righteous correction when half of these people aren't righteous yet. They're it's all about self-righteousness.
yeah.
But things like when people come in the comments and say things like one time I said fruits of the spirit. I use this example all the time. One time I said fruits of the spirit and somebody corrected me and said it's fruit. And I'm like, I'm talking to people about a relationship with Jesus. And most of the people that don't know Jesus yet don't even understand the language of the Bible. So to
Mhm.
me, like this idea that we need to be perfect when we're speaking to people that Jesus wants us to speak to that don't know him yet, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like we need to meet people where they're at. That's why I try to be as vulnerable and transparent as possible because the people that need Jesus need to know that that's okay.
Yes. I love
And
that you said that too because I've been reading Galatians, and
my
so
favorite.
it was Peter that and I hope I'm not messing this up, but it was Peter that was sent to preach to the religious people, um,
Hmm.
and then it was Paul that was sent to preach to the Gentiles, the
Yeah,
non-religious people. So we are sent out to different groups of people, and they didn't hate on each other for the way in which they preached to those different people
right.
because they had different purposes. God gave them different gifts, different backgrounds, and different purposes in that.
Right. And they didn't have social media and a phone or a, laptop to hide behind. So
True, true, true.